Princess stood alone before the great window of the imperial palace. Her silver skin glowed softly in the dim light as she watched the enemy ships fill the sky. There were thousands of them, dark shapes blocking out the stars like a disease spreading across the heavens. The empire was dying. Her people had once ruled 100 star systems. They had built cities that floated among the clouds and temples that touched the edge of space. They had been proud, powerful, and eternal. Now they held only 3 worlds, and even those would fall soon. The Dominion had come for them. Wave after wave, year after year, the enemy had pushed them back. Now warlords' fleets surrounded their last stronghold, waiting like hungry animals outside a wounded creature's den. Pressed her hand against the cold glass. She was young by standards, barely 200 years old. She had trained her whole life to be a leader, a diplomat, a symbol of hope for her people. But what good were words against warships? What good was hope against extinction? The door behind her opened. Her mother Empress entered the room. The Empress moved slowly now, her once bright eyes clouded with exhaustion and grief. Too many battles, too many losses, too many children buried in the cold ground. The humans have answered, said. Turned end. They will help us. They will extend their protection over space. The Dominion will not dare attack a world under human protection. Relief flooded through his chest. The Galactic Human Confederacy was young compared to the ancient empires, but they were feared. No one understood exactly why, but species that attacked human interests had a strange habit of disappearing entirely. What do they want in return? Asked. Nothing came free in the galaxy. His face tightened. A marriage, a union between our houses. They want you to marry a human male. Felt the world shift beneath her feet. She had always known she might be married for political reasons. It was the duty of royalty. But a human. They were so strange, so different. Their lives burned bright and short, lasting less than a century. They were small and soft, without the natural grace of her people. Who? She asked quietly. I do not know. They said only that he is suitable. Closed her eyes. She thought of her people dying in the streets. She thought of children crying for parents who would never come home. She thought of the ships in the sky, waiting to burn everything she loved to ash. I accept, she said. The human delegation arrived 3 days later, dressed in her finest robes, silver and blue, with gems woven into her long white hair. She stood in the throne room surrounded by her court, expecting to meet a great warrior or wealthy merchant. The doors opened, and a single man walked in. He was average height for a human, with black hair and a gentle face. He wore simple clothes, nothing fancy, nothing impressive. He walked with a quiet step, his eyes taking in everything around him without fear or arrogance. He bowed politely. Princess, I am honored to meet you. The court erupted in whispers. This was the human they sent. This ordinary man in plain clothes. Some nobles laughed behind their hands. Others looked offended, believing the humans were mocking them. Studied him carefully. There was nothing special about him. No marks of rank, no weapons, no obvious power. He looked like someone who spent his days reading books and drinking tea. You are my intended husband, she asked. If you will have me, he said simply. His voice was soft, kind. I know this is not what you expected. I know you are sacrificing much for your people. I will try to be worthy of that sacrifice. Something in his words touched her. He did not boast or make promises he could not keep. He simply acknowledged the truth of what she was doing. Empress stepped forward. The Empire accepts this union. May it bring peace between our peoples. The wedding happened quickly, a simple ceremony without celebration. How could they celebrate while their world burned? Spoke the ancient words with a steady voice, binding herself to this strange, quiet human. That night they were given chambers together. Expected awkwardness, perhaps demands. Instead, made tea. He offered her a cup with both hands, a gesture of respect she had not expected him to know. I will not ask anything of you that you do not wish to give, he said. I know this marriage is a duty for you, not a choice. I only ask for patience. In time, perhaps we can become friends. Took the tea. It was warm and comforting, flavored with something sweet she did not recognize. You are strange, she said, not what I expected. He smiled, a small and sad expression. I rarely am. They talked for hours about small things, her favorite gardens, his love of ancient books, the way stars looked different from each world. He was easy to speak with, never demanding, never pushing. She found herself relaxing in his presence. When he thought she was not looking, she saw something change in his eyes. Just for a moment, they reflected something vast and terrible, like looking into a deep ocean full of old and dangerous things. Then it passed, and he was simply a kind man asking if she wanted more tea. Said nothing, but she filed that moment away in her memory. She had married a mystery, and she was beginning to suspect that the humans had sent her something far more valuable than a simple husband. Outside the window, the enemy ship still waited, but for the first time in months, Princess felt something other than despair. She felt curious. 3 months passed since the wedding. The Dominion fleet still hung in the sky, but they had stopped their advance. They were afraid of the humans now, unsure what protection the Confederacy had truly offered. This fear gave people time to breathe, time to hope. And lived in separate rooms but shared their meals together. It had become a comfortable routine. Each morning, he would prepare tea and simple food. Each evening, they would sit and talk about their days. He never pushed for more, and she found herself grateful for his patience. She began watching him more closely. Spent his days walking through the palace gardens, speaking with servants and guards. He learned their names, asked about their families, remembered small details that made them smile. The kitchen staff adored him because he always thanked them for their work. The gardeners loved him because he helped them plant flowers without being asked. He is kind, said one evening. She was handmaiden and oldest friend, a woman who had served the royal family for generations. The servants speak well of him. Kind and mysterious, replied. He knows things he should not know. She had discovered this by accident. One day, an old scholar visited the palace to examine ancient texts. He struggled with a passage written in High, a dead language that only a handful of experts could read. Walked past, glanced at the text, and translated it perfectly without stopping. When asked him about it, he simply said, I have had time to study. But High had been dead for 10,000 years. No human should know it. No human could know it. She began testing him. She spoke to him in different dialects, switching between languages mid-sentence. He followed every word without effort. She mentioned historical events that only scholars remembered. He nodded along, sometimes correcting small details that she later confirmed were accurate. How old are you? She asked one night over dinner. He paused, his cup halfway to his lips. Old enough. That is not an answer. No, he agreed softly, it is not. Human military advisors arrived the following week to examine defenses. Admiral led them, a stern man with gray hair and sharp eyes, expected him to treat like any other civilian, perhaps with polite dismissal. Instead, bowed deeply the moment he saw, not a casual bow of greeting, but a formal gesture of profound respect, the kind of bow soldiers gave to their highest commanders. Sir said, it is an honor. Nodded slightly, Admiral, thank you for coming. Watched this exchange with growing confusion. When she approached later and asked about it, his face went pale. I am sorry, Princess. I cannot discuss it. Please, do not ask me again. He left quickly, almost running. That night came to with strange news. I have been speaking with the human soldiers. They whisper about your husband. What do they say? They call him names. The last guardian, the old one. Some refuse to say his name at all, as if speaking it might bring bad luck. Leaned closer. One soldier told me that is not just a man. He said that your husband is a living weapon, something created in the ancient wars of humanity. Felt a chill run down her spine. A weapon. The soldier would not say more. He looked afraid. Decided to confront directly. She found him in the garden, sitting beneath a tree covered in white flowers. He looked peaceful, almost sleepy, like any ordinary man enjoying a quiet afternoon. "Who are you?" she asked. "Tell me the truth." He looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were kind, but beneath that kindness she saw something else. Sadness, exhaustion, the weight of years beyond counting. "I am your husband. I am here because I chose to be. The rest," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "the rest you will learn when the time comes. I hope you will not hate me for it." "Why would I hate you?" He did not answer. He simply offered her a seat beside him and poured her tea from a small pot he had brought. She sat, accepting the cup, and they watched the sunset together in silence. That peace shattered 2 nights later. Woke to screaming and the sound of weapons fire. A Dominion assassin had infiltrated the palace, sent to kill the princess and break morale forever. Guards fell. Servants ran. Grabbed a blade and prepared to defend herself, but the assassin was fast, a trained killer with enhanced reflexes and armor that laughed at normal weapons. She ran through the corridors, heart pounding, searching for safety. She turned a corner and stopped. The assassin lay on the floor. His body was twisted in ways that should not be possible, bent at angles that made stomach turn. There were no wounds, no blood, no sign of what had killed him. It was as if something had simply decided he should stop existing, and his body had obeyed. Stood nearby, wiping his hands on a cloth. His expression was calm, unchanged, as if he had done nothing more interesting than washing dishes. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. Could not speak. She stared at the broken body, then at her husband. "I made tea," he said. "It will help you sleep." He walked past her, heading toward their chambers. After a long moment followed. She had many questions, but she knew he would not answer them. Not yet. She drank the tea. It did help her sleep. But her dreams were filled with shadows and ancient things moving in the dark. Warlord lost his patience on a cold morning in the 4th month. His message arrived at dawn, broadcast across every channel, every screen, every communication device on the planet. His face filled the sky, projected onto clouds by Dominion technology. He was massive and cruel, with scars covering his gray skin and eyes that burned with hatred. "People of," he announced, "your human protectors have abandoned you. The Confederacy has declared your conflict a regional matter. They will not interfere. You stand alone." His blood turned to ice. "I give you one final chance," continued. "Surrender your princess to me. She will serve as a trophy, a symbol of your defeat. Do this, and I will allow your remaining people to live as slaves. Refuse, and I will burn your world to ash. You have 3 days." The message ended. Silence filled the throne room. Then chaos erupted. Nobles shouted at each other. Military commanders argued about hopeless battle plans. Some voices, quiet at first but growing louder, suggested that perhaps surrendering was the choice. One life for millions. Was it not the logical decision? Empress silenced them with a look. "My daughter will not be given to that monster. We will fight." "With what army?" a noble demanded. "Our fleet is destroyed. Our soldiers are exhausted. The humans have betrayed us." Stood still through all of this, her mind racing. She looked for and found him sitting in a corner, reading a report as if nothing important was happening. His calmness seemed almost insulting given the circumstances. Admiral arrived that evening with official confirmation. The Human Confederacy Council had voted. They would not send their fleet. They would not intervene. The marriage alliance, they claimed, did not require military action. "I am sorry," said, and he seemed to mean it. "I argued against this decision. I was overruled." Felt betrayed. She had given up her freedom, her future, her choice of husband. She had done everything the humans asked, and now they abandoned her people to die. She found in the garden that night. He sat beneath his favorite tree, looking up at the stars. The enemy fleet was visible even in daylight now, so many ships that they formed a second sky above the first. "Did you know?" she asked. "Did you know they would abandon us?" He was quiet for a moment. "Yes." "Then why did you come? Why did you marry me?" He turned to look at her. In the starlight, his face seemed older somehow, carved by centuries of experiences she could not imagine. "I came because the Council does not speak for all of humanity," he said. "And I married you because some things are worth protecting, regardless of what politicians decide." "What can you do? You are one man, they have thousands of ships." He smiled, that small, sad expression she had come to recognize. One man can do many things if he has enough time to learn. Over the following days, he began teaching her about human history, not the clean official version taught in schools, but the truth hidden beneath. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself 7 times, he explained. Nuclear fire, engineered plagues, wars that burned entire continents to glass. "We are very good at war," he said. "It is our greatest shame and our only gift. When we fight, we do not stop. We do not surrender. We find ways to win that other species cannot imagine because we have spent our entire history learning to kill each other." "That is horrible," said. "Yes, it is also why we are still alive. The galaxy is not kind to the weak." On the final night before's deadline, asked to walk with him to the palace roof. They stood together, watching the Dominion fleet gather in orbit, thousands of ships preparing for the final assault, drop pods loaded with soldiers, bombs that could crack continents. "Tomorrow they will attack," said. "I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Stay inside the palace. Whatever happens, whatever you see through the windows, do not come outside. Can you promise me this?" Studied his face. The kindness was still there, but something else had risen to the surface. Something cold and ancient and terrifying. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. He did not answer. Instead, he pulled a small device from his pocket. It was a communicator, clearly human technology, but old, incredibly old. The metal was worn smooth by countless hands over countless years. He spoke a single word into it, "Acknowledged." Nothing seemed to happen, but noticed something strange. Across the city, every human on the planet stopped what they were doing. Soldiers paused mid-step. Advisors looked up from their work. Even Admiral, visible in a distant window, went completely still. They all turned their faces toward the sky, as if hearing a call that only they could perceive. Then the moment passed. Humans returned to their tasks, but there was something different in their movements now, something purposeful, something prepared. "Put the communicator away. Thank you for these months. You showed me kindness when you had no reason to. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that I am grateful." "You speak as if you might not survive." "I will survive," he said quietly. "I always do. That is part of my punishment." He walked her back to her chambers and wished her good night. At the door, he paused and turned back. "When you see what I am," he said, "please try to remember the man who made you tea." Then he was gone, and was left alone with her fear and her questions, and the terrible feeling that tomorrow would change everything she understood about the universe. Outside, the stars disappeared one by one, as the Dominion fleet moved into attack formation. The storm had arrived. The attack began at sunrise. Fire fell from the sky like rain. Dominion ships opened their weapons and poured destruction onto the planet below. Buildings exploded. Streets melted. The screams of the dying mixed with the roar of engines as drop pods crashed down, releasing thousands of enemy soldiers. Watched from the palace window, tears streaming down her face. Her world was burning. Her people were dying, and she could do nothing but stand there, helpless, honoring her promise to stay inside. The human soldiers, fewer than 100, formed a defensive line around the palace. They were brave but hopelessly outnumbered. The Dominion army advanced like a tide, crushing everything in its path. Then walked out alone. Pressed her hands against the glass, her heart stopping. What was he doing? He would be killed in seconds. He stood in the courtyard facing the enemy army. Thousands of soldiers, dozens of tanks, aircraft filling the sky above. They saw him and laughed. One tiny human against an army. This was a joke. Reached up and pulled off his simple civilian clothes. Beneath them was armor. Black metal covered his body, ancient and terrible. Strange symbols glowed along its surface, pulsing with inner light. The design was nothing like modern human technology. It looked older, far older, like something from humanity's forgotten past. In his hand, something appeared, a weapon that bent light around it, making eyes water just from looking at it. She could not understand what she was seeing. It was as if reality itself was afraid of that object. The Dominion soldiers stopped laughing. Moved. Had seen fast things before, ships at full speed, athletes at their peak, predator animals striking at prey. Nothing prepared her for this. One moment he stood still. The next he was among the enemy. Bodies flew through the air. Soldiers simply ceased to exist, erased from the world as if they had never been. His weapon sang a sound like thunder and screaming combined, and wherever it pointed, death followed. He did not fight like a soldier. Soldiers could be understood. This was something else. This was annihilation given human form. Tanks turned their weapons toward him. Their shots hit nothing but empty air. By the time they fired, he was already behind them, and then the tanks were not tanks anymore. They were twisted metal and fire. Aircraft dove to attack him. They fell from the sky like birds struck by lightning, spinning and burning, crashing into their own troops. An entire battalion charged him at once, hundreds of soldiers firing every weapon they had. Raised his hand and something invisible expanded outward. The weapons stopped working. The soldiers stopped moving. Then they stopped existing. Could not breathe. This was not a battle. This was a massacre performed by a single man. In orbit, something happened that made the Dominion fleet panic. A ship emerged from hyperspace, but calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. It was vast beyond measure, blocking out the sun, casting a shadow that covered half the planet. Its hull was covered in the same symbols as armor, glowing with the same terrible light. It spoke. The voice came through every communication device, every speaker, every frequency. It spoke in all languages simultaneously, a chorus of billions of voices united into one message. This world is protected. Leave or be removed. Warlord, watching from his command ship, screamed in rage. He ordered his entire fleet to fire on the ancient vessel. 3,000 ships unleashed everything they had. Missiles, energy beams, nuclear weapons. The firepower could have cracked moons. It hit the human ship and did nothing. The weapons splashed against its hull like water against stone, absorbed without effect. The ancient ship responded. A single beam of light emerged from its center. Then that beam split into 1,000 threads, then 1,000,000. Each thread found a Dominion ship. Each thread touched it gently, almost lovingly. Each ship vanished. No explosion, no debris. They simply stopped being there. In seconds, 3,000 warships became nothing. An entire invasion fleet erased from existence. On the ground, stood amid the ruins of the Dominion army. The soldiers who survived threw down their weapons and ran. Those too slow to run fell to their knees and begged for mercy. He let them go. Realized she was shaking, not from fear but from understanding. The humans had not sent her an ordinary husband. They had sent her a god of war, wrapped in the shape of a kind man who made tea. She ran from the palace, ignoring the warnings of her guards. She pushed through the chaos until she found him. knelt in the center of a crater surrounded by ash and silence. His armor was dimming, the symbols fading. The weapon in his hand dissolved into nothing. He looked up at her approach. His eyes were the same kind eyes she knew, but now she could see the weight behind them. The exhaustion of 11,000 years, the memory of every death he had caused. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am sorry you had to see what I am." Knelt beside him. Her hands trembled as she touched his face. "You saved us," she said. "I killed thousands today. I have killed millions over my lifetime. There is nothing noble about what I am. But you could have killed more. You let the survivors go. You could have destroyed everything, but you held back." He looked at her with something like wonder. "You are not afraid of me." "I am terrified of you," she admitted. "But you are still the man who made me tea. You are still my husband." Above them the ancient ship went dark and silent, drifting like a sleeping giant. The battle was over. The war was won. Collapsed against her, and held him as the sun rose over her broken, saved world. 1 week passed after the battle. The Dominion signed an unconditional surrender. Warlord, captured alive by human forces, would spend the rest of his days in a prison built specifically to hold him. The galaxy watched the Empire with new eyes. Some felt hope, seeing that even dying civilizations could be saved. Others felt fear, realizing that humanity possessed weapons beyond their worst nightmares. Demanded the truth. She found in the garden, sitting beneath his favorite tree. He had recovered from the battle, but something had changed in him. He seemed lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. "Tell me everything," she said. "No more secrets. I need to understand what you are." He nodded slowly. "Sit with me. This will take time." She sat beside him, and he began to speak. "Humanity's wars did not simply shape us," he said. "They created something new. In our darkest hour, when extinction seemed certain, our scientists discovered something impossible. Human consciousness could be refined, compressed, made into something more." "What do you mean?" "I mean that we learned to take everything that makes a human dangerous and concentrate it into a single being. All the fighting knowledge of our species, all the survival instinct, all the capacity for violence that evolution gave us. We poured it into volunteers who agreed to carry that burden forever." Felt cold despite the warm sunlight. "You volunteered for this?" "Yes, 11,000 years ago, when humanity faced its seventh extinction. An alien empire much like the Dominion came to wipe us out. We had nothing that could stop them. So 12 of us stepped forward and agreed to become weapons." 12. "We are called the Guardians, living weapons engineered over. We cannot die of age. We cannot be killed by conventional means. We carry the fighting knowledge of 1 trillion human soldiers in our minds." He paused. "And we cannot forget a single death we have caused." Understood now why his eyes held such terrible weight. 11,000 years of killing. Millions of deaths, each one remembered perfectly. "Why do you continue?" she asked. "Why not simply stop?" "Because humanity needs us. We are their greatest secret and their deepest shame. We are deployed only when extinction threatens, either our own people or those under our protection. We are the last line between humanity and annihilation. The Council said they would not help us. They abandoned us." Smiled sadly. "The Council speaks for human politics. I answer to something older. The original agreement made when the Guardians were first created. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That agreement has no expiration date." Sat in silence, processing everything she had learned. Her husband was not a man. He was a living weapon, ancient beyond her understanding, capable of destroying entire fleets with a gesture. "And yet, why did you agree to marry me?" she asked. "You could have simply saved us and left." His eyes met hers. In that moment, all the ancient weight fell away, and she saw only the kind man who had made her tea on their wedding night. "Because I have lived for 11,000 years," he said. I have watched civilizations rise and fall. I have killed more beings than your world has ever held. I have done terrible things in the name of protection, and in all that time, I have never once been offered something as simple as kindness. Kindness. You showed me kindness when you thought I was nothing. You shared meals with me. You learned my name. You treated me as a person, not a weapon. Do you understand how rare that is? How precious? Remembered those first months, the awkward dinners, the quiet conversations, the way she had him thinking he was just an ordinary man sent as a political pawn. I thought you were weak, she admitted. I felt sorry for you. I know, and that was the greatest gift anyone has given me in. You saw a person worth caring about, not a monster to be feared. He took her hand gently. That is why I am here. That is why I will always be here. Not because of politics or alliances or duty, because you made me feel human again. Tears filled his eyes. She had married him to save her people. She had never expected to find something deeper. Months later, the empire began to recover. Other species sought alliance, drawn not by fear of human weapons but by the example of resilience. The galaxy was changing slowly and was helping to guide that change. She walked through the rebuilt gardens with at her side. Her hand rested on her stomach where new life was growing. Their child, a bridge between human and would be born in spring. Will our child be like you? She asked. No, he said. Our child will be better. They will have your wisdom and your compassion. They will have my protection but not my curse. They will never need to become what I am. And if the galaxy threatens them someday. Smiled, and for a moment, she glimpsed the terrible power hiding behind his gentle eyes. Then the galaxy will learn why humanity survived 7 extinctions. But I do not think it will come to that. Times are changing. Perhaps, he paused, looking at the sky with something she had never seen in him before. Hoping. Perhaps the age of guardians is ending, he said. Perhaps our children will build something better than endless war. Perhaps they will finally achieve the peace we were never able to find. Leaned against him, feeling his warmth, hearing the steady beat of his ancient heart. I love you, she said. The words surprised her, but they were true. He held her close. I love you too, more than you can know. You saved me. I came here to protect your people, but you protected something far more important. You protected the part of me that was still human. They stood together as the sun set over their healing world. Above them, stars appeared one by one, no longer filled with enemy ships. For the first time in 11,000 years, the Guardian called allowed himself to imagine a future without war. And standing beside his wife, with their child growing between them, that future seemed finally, beautifully possible.